Welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. As we think about the war on Iran as a war over oil and tie that in with the devastation of our biosphere, the heating of it by the burning of fossil fuels, the polluting of it, basically a few points I want to keep in mind as to how to analyze this. One, we look at it as opening territory to being open to investment, opening oil fields rather, to being open to investment by U.S. headquarter companies, control of the global oil spigot, and oil being traded in U.S. dollars. And that these wars are facilitated by one-sided media narratives. The bad guy's the bad guy. That's all there is to it. And a downplaying of the economic interests involved in these wars, and an even bigger downplaying of the fact that these economic interests are not in the interests of humanity or the American people. I'm going to share with you some key points from an interview on Democracy Now! With Michael Hudson, an economist. This is based on his article in Counterpunch titled, "The U.S.-Israeli Attack Was to Prevent Peace, Not Advance It." And in part 2 of that book, Hudson also referenced his book called Super Imperialism. So the show started off by pointing out the fact that one day after Iran was ready to sign a new no-nuclear bomb deal, let's call it, it was right after Oman's foreign minister Badr al-Busaidi, who appeared on CBS's Face the Nation, announced it one day before the attack, right after he announced that, trying to apparently get ahead of the game, thinking he couldn't really trust Jared Kushner, is what there's some speculation, to announce this deal. Right after he announced it on CBS's Face the Nation, the brutal attack is launched. And that this war is really about oil to a large extent is right announced by Lindsey Graham himself. Well, as Michael Hudson pointed out, in 1953, the U.S. overthrew a democratically elected socialist government in Iran after they dared to nationalize the oil. We helped install the Shah, privatizing oil again and ending democracy there until the 1979 revolution. Hudson explains that after the OPEC oil shock of the 1970s, what sounded to me, based on his interview, like a new strategy started to emerge. And Hudson himself said that he sat in on White House meetings in 1974 when he was a specialist at Chase Manhattan Bank for the U.S. balance of payments, specifically for the oil industry. So here this guy's an insider, and people like him are getting kind of ignored or downplayed in the general business-owned press. Prior to the 1970s, when nations dared to nationalize their oil or nationalize resources, the strategy would more so be to simply overthrow them, as we did in Iran in 1953, and similar to what we just did in Venezuela, to a degree in Chile in the what was that, the 70s with Pinochet. Now, 1974, another way emerged to control the oil, and that was to make arrangements with petrostates like Saudi Arabia to trade oil in U.S. dollars, then recycle the profits and rents in the U.S. economy in the form of purchasing treasuries and bonds and stocks. And that in turn then helps fund our over 800 overseas military bases. Now, Hudson points out that Iran was not pricing oil in U.S. dollars, and that was part of the urgency for the attack. China was its main buyer. Venezuela, pre-invasion, also announced that it was going to stop pricing oil in U.S. dollars and priced it in non-U.S. currency, specifically the Chinese currency. So here he says that the United States has been being faced with a substantial portion of the world export oil trade not being in U.S. dollars anymore. And he points out that for a long time now, countries that their oil industry was not under our, in quote, control, and I put that in quotes because you want to think of it really as under the control of these international business interests, not us, the American people, get on the hit list. And here he pointed out General Petraeus years ago outlined this whole plan, as he called it, saying, well, we're going to conquer 7 Near Eastern countries, culminating in Iran. Now, toss Chomsky into the analysis. When these countries get on the enemy list, the public tends to support targeting them, or at least goes along with their demonization, even though in this case they tend not to like this war because it isn't going well. I think because these economic ties are underemphasized. Now, you may say, well, for some people, and I guarantee you, they're going to say, well, you know what, it may be about money and power, but we need to win it. Well, who is we is what you got to stop and ask yourself. Because the rise in world oil prices is a windfall for U.S. domestic oil companies and gas companies, but is that a windfall for the people? It hurts economies all over the world, forcing them to choose between austerity or their military budget or recession. But it's far worse than that if you factor in the environment and think about what the nature of this economy really is. Winning the war for oil is analogous to winning the war over who gets to supply the addictive drugs to our own and the world's population. So don't think of this as our economic interest when you're told about we need to secure the resources for us. It's not like that. We are serving the interests of the most powerful industry since the dawn of capitalism, fossil fuels, and now add in petrochemicals, which are getting us to pump our biosphere full of heat-trapping gases, destabilizing our climate, carcinogens, and harmful particulate matter. Like I always like to say, if you think this stuff is so innocuous, stand behind the tailpipe and take a nice big whiff of it. And we are protecting these industries against competition, both abroad from China, which could help encourage us to also build an EV and renewable energy, but we are protecting them from competitors, protecting them against alternatives, even just protecting them against just buying less stuff and less crap, if you want to put it that way. And that, my fellow Americans and my fellow people of the world who buy into the one-sided media narratives coming out of here, is not in our interest, that of the American people, or your interest either. Well, I hope you found this one good food for thought. If so, please make sure you are subscribed. Please comment, click that notification bell, and please check out the revolutionarygraphics.org. Check out some of the t-shirts there, the protest art, if you want to call it that. And and thanks to my couple of patrons at Patreon, Bella Grissi Environmental Coffee House. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.